Good morning. Is everybody here? We're ready to get started.
Looks like we're missing just a couple folks.
All right.
Just about everybody is logged in now. If you want to go ahead and get started, Chad. Thank
All
you.
right. Will do. My name is Chad Wenzel Spratt. I am the real estate practice group leader here at Pearl Insurance. And Pearl Insurance is endorsed by the Oregon Association of Realtors as an errors and emissions insurance provider. Have been actually for a very long time, since the late 80s. So one of our longest partnerships that we have in the country. We insure over 12,000 brokerages throughout the country, protecting tens of thousands of agents. And today we're going to talk about why errors and emissions insurance is important. Also touch base a little bit on the importance of cyber liability as well. So let's just jump right in and share with you this disclaimer. Basically says that I am a licensed insurance agent. That's the hat that I wear. I am not a claims director. I am not an attorney. So I cannot speak on their behalf. So any questions that you have that may pertain to their profession, I'd have to defer to them, but I'm more than happy to answer any policy related questions. So just a quick overview. Like I said, we'll talk about E&O insurance, do some claims overview, get into a little bit of cyber, very important these days, and then share with you some risk management tips that are going to help you to avoid and prevent claims. What is E&O? Well, E&O is errors and emissions insurance, and it's been designed to protect you as a real estate professional. So you had to go out, do all that hard work to get your license. And because of that, you're held to a higher standard. So if for some reason you make a mistake, create an error, just have a bad day at work, or you may not even done anything wrong, you may be subject to a claim. And so if your client thinks that the information that you provided is resulted in them receiving a financial loss or doing them harm in any way, I mean, believe it or not, most claims are just emotionally driven. They just aren't happy. So we get a lot of frivolous lawsuits. But there obviously are some out there where folks do lose money, and of course they go and file a lawsuit against you. So the E&O is going to come in and provide you with professional assistance, either from the claims director or from an attorney, and the policy is going to cover the legal costs or pay any settlement that may be reached to resolve the matter. Or ultimately, if it ends up going to court and a judgment has been brought against you, then the E&O will pay the damages. Some basic coverage that you'll find in every E&O insurance policy is personal injury. So if you do something that, or I should say or email something that you could be libel, slander, invasion of privacy, and wrongful eviction. We've seen a lot of claims around the country for wrongful eviction these days. You may have been reading in the papers about squatters and their rights, and landlords that are like, I get them out of my house, and they don't go the legal route. So we end up getting suits brought against our clients for wrongful eviction. Environmental failure to advise. This is a big area as well, because many times the seller doesn't know that the home has mold, or that the home has asbestos, or you don't properly inform the buyer that the house may have lead or has radon. All of these things could very well come back as a lawsuit if they're not disclosed. Now, fair housing discrimination is just one of those areas where if it doesn't fit nice and neat into some other area, it's easy to cry foul under the fair housing discrimination. So we see a lot of claims. It's actually probably since 2020, in one of our top areas, we see claims filed under fair housing discrimination. So it's one of those things where you may have done everything right, but the customer just isn't happy, and they find a reason to sue, and it's very easy to do it under the fair housing discrimination. Some things that are excluded. So commission disputes. There is no E&O policy that's going to cover that. So with the whole thing that went down with the NAR, received a lot of calls saying, hey, will the E&O policy cover this? Unfortunately, E&O policies, it was a commission dispute, so there was no coverage under E&O for that. Obviously, intentional, wrongful, or fraudulent acts, not going to cover those as well. If you basically lie or cheat or steal, there's no E&O insurance policy that's going to cover something like that. Now, bodily injury and property damage, I have asterisks next to these because some policies do cover bodily injury and property damage, but not all do. So this is something you'd have to read your policy to make sure. But most admitted policies will have property damage for open houses and the use of a lockbox. I always recommend all my clients that they put a lockbox on all the homes that they have listed. One of the questions I've gotten recently is, the homeowner has like a high-tech lock on the door with the key code or whatever, will that suffice? And in checking with the claims department, the answer is no. It must be a lockbox because the policy's language as it stands right now says lockbox. It doesn't say key code. So need to be a lockbox. Obviously, the policy excludes mortgage brokering. There are some policies where you can endorse that, but in most cases, it's best to have a standalone mortgage brokering policy just because it's going to provide more robust coverage. This is something that I always want to make people aware of. And if there's anything you remember that you take away from today's instruction, I would like everyone to memorize this. What is a claim? It is a demand for money or services. It's just that simple. If you've ever had a customer demand money or services from you, you've had a claim. And E&O insurance policies contractually require you to report every claim. So anytime you have a demand for money or service, you need to report it. Now, I've been doing these seminars for about 10 years. When I first started doing them, the statistic was 1 in 14 agents will experience a claim during their career. This is a stat that we get from our friends at the National Association of Realtors. As of last year, it's 1 in 5 now. What that proves is our society has become far more litigious. People are more quick to run off and get an attorney than they are to sit down over a cup of coffee and figure things out. So you need to keep this in mind when you're working with your clients, because they may come across as your best friend, but when they feel that they've been harmed or have a financial loss, they're very quick to run off and get an attorney to assist them. Here's some facts I think you'll find interesting. Matters reported immediately result in $0 paid in over 50% of cases. And the average claim is approximately $50,000, and that's for residential. If we're doing an agent-owned property transaction, if your policy allows that, those claims could be upwards to $150,000. And of course, commercial claims could be anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 on average, depending on the type of commercial property you're dealing with. But 50% of claims, as I mentioned before, they're frivolous. You know, they're baseless. They just are emotionally driven. But you still need to defend yourself. You need E&O insurance. You need the claims department and legal team to make them go away. And 3 out of 4 claims are going to be made by a buyer suing a seller. And we'll get to a little bit more about why that is. Now, here's some events that require your action. Obviously, if you have a demand for money or service, that's a claim. You got to report it. An incident could be a claim. It's kind of like, you know, you did something wrong and you need to tell your client so that you can try to keep them from suing you and it becoming a claim. So when you have a situation where you know you did something wrong, you made an error, you know, you were negligent in your duties, you need to let us know, because our claims director know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two. And give you an example. And one of the things we'll talk about later on is the importance of transferring your risk. And this is one of the examples where our agent should have done that. But basically, the client had informed their agent that they wanted to buy a home in a specific school district. So the agent went and looked for homes that were available in that school district, and the client went and bought one of the homes. And the agent found out after the closing that the school had actually done redistrict. And now they realize they've got an incident. They sold that family a house that's not in the school district that they wanted to be in. Now, ideally, what the agent probably should have done to avoid putting themselves in harm's way, assuming the liability, is instructed their client to, you know, find homes or find out what the school district was, find homes in the school district that they wanted to see, instead of assuming that they knew what the school district was. That's what created the liability, the potential claim for themselves. Now, depositions. This is one of those things where, again, you've done nothing wrong, but you still get a nasty letter in the mail saying you're being subpoenaed. That's because the agent on the other side of the transaction is being sued, and the attorneys need your testimony to help with their case. Now, we don't want anybody going to a deposition without legal representation. So E&O insurance policies have coverage where you'll be provided an attorney, either to represent you at the deposition or to counsel you before you attend, because we don't want you saying something that's going to get you pulled into the lawsuit. Disciplinary action. Maybe your client has filed a complaint against you to the board, and now you got to face the music. Again, don't want you to have to do that on your own. So there is coverage in the policy to provide you with legal representation in that situation. Anytime you have a claim, an incident, need to attend a deposition or have disciplinary action, it requires you to notify the insurance company. Obviously, you're going to accept all papers without comment or complaint. You're going to report it immediately. And in our policy and everybody else's policy, there is going to be a claim form that needs to be completed. Now, to help you with your claim, I recommend that you have a written narrative included with every transaction, because claims don't happen a week after a closing. They usually happen months, possibly years. And if you're getting as old as I am, you forget why you went into the kitchen. So keep a written narrative with the file. That way, when that day comes, you'll be able to jog your memory. Also, obviously, we need all legal paperwork, the demand notice, but we also need a complete transaction file. When I say complete, is it needs to be with the brokerage. Because if the brokerage, or if the agent decides to leave the brokerage and you don't have a complete file, makes it very difficult to defend you if we don't have all the information. So make sure that, and today with everything stored electronically, it's not hard to have the complete file in hand, but make sure that that's part of office policy and procedures, that the complete file is and stays with the brokerage. Things you do not want to do not admit liability or blame. As I said, you don't want to be attending any depositions or a conference, meeting, anything without carrier approval. Do not make any voluntary payments. So many times over the years, I've heard stories of, client had an issue with water heater or furnace or whatever, and it was an easy fix, may cost $250, $500, and you just want to take care of it for your client. But if you do that, you're basically putting yourself in jeopardy of not having E&O coverage down the road, because a lot of times those little problems snowball into big problems. Now it's a $5,000 or $15,000 problem, and you don't want to clean out your sock drawer in that situation. So don't put yourself in a position where claim may be declined because you try to resolve matters yourself early on. Just don't do it. Again, a demand for money or service is a claim. You need to report it. You need to let the E&O insurance do their job. Do not keep things to yourself, hoping it'll just go away. And today, we live in the information age. Things do not stay secret. They do not go away. They eventually get found out. So as soon as you got an issue, got a problem, let your manager know, let the insurance company know. So here's some typical claims that we see. Believe it or not, the sewer versus septic, you would think that, how could this be a problem? It's in the top 10 most common claims I've seen for the last 10 years. It's gone down the list. I like to think because of as many of these seminars I've done over the years, I've helped to educate and inform people to prevent these type of claims from happening. But you have to do your due diligence. You can't just take it at face value that the paperwork that you have, that the property is sewer, or septic. You've got to figure it out on your own. Had a claim where they were thinking they were buying a property that was on the sewer. It wasn't. And it was a larger family, which took its toll on the septic system, caused it to break. And the paperwork that the agent was working off of was from the original seller. And that was like 3 sales ago. Can't do that. That's putting the trust, your liability in somebody else's hands. That claim ultimately ended up costing $75,000 because it wasn't just to fix the septic system. They sued because they wanted a house on the sewer, and they won. So it cost $75,000 to put that house on a sewer system, attach them to the sewer. So that's why it's important. You got to make sure that if somebody's buying a home, they know what they're getting. Now, water intrusion. A lot of times on a seller's disclosure form, they'll put something as simple as, seasonally, the basement can get some water. To me, if, one home in that situation, the basement ended up getting 3 inches of water after a storm. 3 inches to me isn't some water. That's a flood. So you need to be specific. What kind of water intrusion are we talking about? Boundaries. You probably have all heard horror stories related to boundaries where somebody put up a fence that was in their neighbor's yard, not in their yard. Somebody may have, in those types of situations, all you need to do is make sure that they get, it checked out to make sure that surveyed that is their property. This is becoming more and more prevalent of an issue since COVID, with more and more people wanting to work from home and the type of work they're doing from home. We've had claims over the years for people who have set up daycares in their home. They're going to make sure that the neighborhood is zoned to allow for people to run a business out of their home. We've also had claims where guy was moonlighting as a mechanic, fixing cars out of his garage nights and weekends, but had a dozen, broken down cars lining the street. Neighbors didn't like that. So we talked about licensing complaints. Get quite a few of those. People just, again, they're not happy. This is an easy route for them to take. Now, homeowners associations can be a big problem, because most folks get it by they don't care. They want the house, they want to live there. The homeowners association agreement is a moot point to them. They're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. Well, as soon as they violate something in the homeowners association, they'll find out real quick, what that can end up costing them. And a lot of times they turn around and sue their agent because they're like, you didn't tell me I couldn't cut down those trees. We've seen some really expensive claims for people cutting down trees when the homeowners association says you can't. And so what I would recommend from a risk management standpoint is, if you know that the buyer is going to have to enter into a homeowners association, that they get with their lawyer, go through it page by page, have them sign and date every page. That way you've got a copy of that in your file. So if they do come back, you've got the documentation to say, hey, you reviewed it, you signed off on it. That's on you. That's not on us. So I was saying before, 3 out of 4 buyers sue the sellers. That's because more than 70% of claims come from misrepresentation and failing to disclose. You have to keep in mind, this is basically 75% of claims. Failing to disclose. I mean, misrepresentation is on you. You didn't do your homework and make sure that you provided all the facts. A failure to disclose, that's on the seller, which, as much as they may try to provide as much information as they can, they don't always know everything. Some of them may deliberately leave something out because they want their house to sell. It still puts you at risk because of failing to disclose. So we see a lot of claims by buyers because of this. So you got to make sure that, here's where it gets tough, is that you may be aware of something that is wrong with the home, and you've reviewed the seller's disclosure form and they didn't list it. And so you have to talk with your client about, it's missing from the form here, and they're not willing to add it. So at that point, you have one of two choices. Either you move on from representing the clients, or you assume the liability. So that's E&O in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more to E&O, but it takes me several weeks when I'm training a new account executive on the ins and outs of E&O. An E&O policy is dozens of pages long. If you've never read an errors and omissions insurance policy, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're having trouble sleeping at night, because it's pretty boring stuff. It'll probably put you out in about 5 minutes, but I think it'll be very eye-opening. You read through it and you'll see some things in there. You're like, wow, I didn't realize these things. But what I went over is, a 30,000 foot view of what you need to know and understand. And welcome to any questions that you may have. Feel free to, you can put them in the message box here. We can talk about them now, or you can email me later. Happy to. This is really the whole point, is to make sure that you understand. I want to keep you all out of harm's way. It's all about the risk management. It's all about avoiding and preventing claims. But cyber is, as far as I'm concerned, it's synonymous with E&O insurance. If you're going to be doing business, not just as a realtor, but in any profession, you need cyber liability. It's just the world we live in. I mean, unless you're working without access to the internet, no email, no smartphones, no text messages, then you don't need cyber liability. But I don't know anybody that lives that way. It's not possible. So you need cyber protection. Now, here's some information I'm going to share with you that can help you not just professionally, but also help you at home, because we all are faced with cyber threats in our personal lives as well. Why are realtors a target? Well, they're actually the third highest targeted profession in the country. The medical industry is number one. The financial industry is number two. Realtors are number three because you have access to non-public, personally identifiable information. This is what happens when you put technicians in charge of naming things, because this is hard to say. So they got this acronym, PII. When you read news articles about a breach, AT&T just had a breach. That's the most recent situation. You're going to see this acronym PII. It's because of personally identifiable information, which is people's addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, their income, credit scores. Once that gets out there, that creates a problem. It's also because realtors are dealing with moving large sums of money. Multiple parties are involved. You got banks, you've got title companies, attorneys. There's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, dealing with digital transactions. So this is how cyber crime is done. Here's some interesting statistics. Last year, there were 880,000 reported complaints, which, based on the feedback I've gotten from attending FBI Homeland Security seminars. 880,000 is really a low number. They really think that there should be a lot more complaints than that there are. And I think it has a lot to do with people just either they don't know to report it, or they're afraid to report it because they just don't want the bad press. But out of those 880 complaints led to $12.5 billion in losses. And the complaints are up 10% from 2022. And the dollar loss increased significantly by 18%. A little chart here that shows you one of the things I thought was interesting is that in 2022, the complaints were actually less than in 2021. And I'm still trying to figure out why that is. The damages were still high, but the complaints were down. But they went back up in 2023 and damages are as high as they've ever been. So as much as we're trying to do to educate the public, we're going in the wrong direction. We still have a lot of work to do. Complaints are coming from, the majority are coming from folks over 50, especially those over 60. And, some would say it's, they have more time to file a complaint because it's not a 30-second phone call. It can take a day or two, fill out all the paperwork and everything. But it's also because that's age group is who has the most money. Those are the folks that are being targeted by cyber criminals. Folks under 20 don't have any money. So you can see 40 million out of 18,000 complaints compared to 3.4 billion for folks over 60. So it's something to keep in mind. Pulled these numbers for you to show you that you're not in the top 10. Oregon's not in the top 10 for number of complaints. And you're not in the top 10 for losses. You're 25th. You're halfway. 6,700 complaints with 136 million in losses. What I would point out, though, is your neighbor, Washington, is in the top 10. So any of you that are close to them or do business also in Washington, keep that in mind. %90 of all cyber attacks begin with phishing. So if you have email, a cyber criminal is going to find you and they're going to send you a phish email. They're going phishing. And two of the main ways that they gain access to your systems is by you opening up an attachment, which hopefully most of us today make sure to not open up something from someone we don't know. And the other way is via a hyperlink. Now, this may not just be from an email, but it also may be from a text message. So I know you all get emails and text messages with hyperlinks. It's just a way for, our emails that we send out have hyperlinks in them. And so I'm out here telling people not to click on them, even though I need you to click on ours and our email. So you got to make sure that the email or text you're receiving is from a trusted source before you open or click on anything. But if you open something or click on a hyperlink from a cyber criminal, they're going to get access to your systems. And before I go any further, there is one hyperlink that you need to be very careful of. I know you've all clicked on it, but you got to be careful going forward because it's the #1 way cyber criminals are getting access. And that is via the unsubscribe button. That's right. You have to be careful when you click on that button because that email could very easily be from a cyber criminal, and you click on it, they're in. Once they get in, they're going to start monitoring. They're going to wait for an opportunity to strike. While they're monitoring, they're reading your emails, and they're getting to know how you talk. So once they've found an opportunity, they're going to impersonate you. They're going to change the email address, maybe by one character, and send an email to your client. The client's going to think it's you because it sounds just like you. It looks just like your email. They're going to manipulate the client to say, hey, we got a closing coming up. We need that earnest money. We need that down payment. But there's been a change. We need you to send it to this bank account now. Client thinks it's from you. They don't think anything of it. And they go ahead and send the money. But now it's gone because they sent it to a cyber criminal. Best thing you can do in this situation, we've advised our clients over the years to have in their email and signature, letting clients know about this threat. But the best thing you can do is when you sit down with your client for the first time and you go over your contract, is you let them know that they're never going to receive an email from you with instructions on where to send a payment. And if they do, pick up the phone and call you. Anytime you have an issue, I got a call the other day on my phone where somebody that wanted to give me a discount on paying for prescriptions. And again, that's something that many people would like to take advantage of because some prescriptions are very expensive, which reminds me of, when you're doing your open houses or, you have a listing, to let your clients know to hide their medication, take their medication with them, put it in the safe or something, because it's actually the number one item that's stolen during an open house or showing. But I told the individual I was going to, be interested in their offer, and told them to remove me from their list. But some people may not have the training and understanding that I do about the risk of cybercrime, but that these things happen every day. I'm sure many of you have experienced them. So red flags. Make sure the email's from a trusted source. One of the things that we do to train our people in-house is to hover over the email, see if it's actually a legit email, because you'll find that if it's not from a trusted source, that the email will look suspicious. Emails that include a sense of urgency, needing to take action right away. We had one where our IT department sends out test emails once in a while to see if they can catch some people, and they sent out one from the president of the company saying that they needed to do this right away or else, and many people fell for it. So they had to go back to cyber school. And as I was saying, be careful of emails that have attachments or hyperlink. Make sure before you open or click anything that it's good to go. Responding to an email. Don't ever include your login or passphrase information, credit card numbers, any sensitive information. If you're sending out files that are encrypted, don't email the password to open up the encrypted file. A lot of people, I'll just email it separately. If a cyber criminal's in your system, they're going to see both emails. So if you got a password you need to give somebody, pick up the phone, call them. So prevention, it's all about education. That's all we can do at this point. Because when it comes to cyber criminals, it's not a question of if, but when. If they want to get in, they'll find a way. You can take extra protection by setting up a multi-factor authentication system. I have to log into my work computer each day. I have to on an app on my smartphone. I have to log in a code that says, yes, that's me logging into my laptop. So, and if somebody were to get my laptop, they wouldn't be able to log in without accessing the app on my phone. Every brokerage should be preparing a pre and a post breach plan. Social media is just helping hackers. The amount of information that we're sharing publicly out there right now is absurd. And ideally, none of us should be on anything on social media. No Facebook, no Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. All of that is just too much information that we're sharing to make it easier for them to break into our worlds. Safeguards, this isn't a option. You need commercial grade antivirus program with daily auto updates. And you must have robust passphrase protection. You're going to start seeing the word passphrase more and more because we're moving away from the term password. Password indicates something short. Passphrases are longer. Technically, every passphrase for all of your devices should be more than 12 characters long. Most systems, when you set them up, they're like, needs to be a minimum of 8. Well, they really should be a minimum of 12 now. And the reason that is because of this chart. There's software out there that any kid can download off the internet that would allow them to break into your systems. Some of them instantly. Some of them may take a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, maybe a few weeks. But if you have over 12 characters with numbers, uppercase, lowercase, letters, and symbols, you wouldn't have to change that passphrase, but maybe once a year. I have, for all of my work, my home, all the important things, I have passphrases that are over 20 characters long. And I just use something that's easy for me to remember, like a quote from a movie. I know many of my friends, they'll use lyrics from a song. Other people I know that use a phrase, from the Bible, something that and you can easily manipulate the numbers and letters. That way you don't have to worry about changing things often. But you shouldn't be using the same passphrase for all of your different devices. I know I have over 40 different things I need to use a passphrase for. So I'm old school. I have a spiral notebook where I keep all this stuff written down. But not everybody, wants to do that. They want some technological help. So left-hand column here has a list. This is from Forbes of the top antivirus software providers. I've used McAfee for, it's got to be over a decade, and use it on everything: laptops, iPads, use it on the iPhones, use it on everything I can put it on. The two things that I can't put it on that creates a security risk in my home, and probably most people's home, is my kids' gaming systems and printers that use Wi-Fi. Also, a lot of people, and myself included, have gone to thermostats. I have a Nest thermostat that's set up on Wi-Fi as well. Anything that's connected to Wi-Fi is an entry point for a cyber criminal. So some things we're just going to have to rethink in our world. I know other people have these cameras that they have, doorbell cameras, or just seen them where you can screw them into a light socket. They, again, connect to Wi-Fi, you give people access. But on the right-hand side here are a list of the password managers. I haven't actually purchased one of these yet. One of these days, I'm sure I will break down and finally get one. So you only have to remember one passphrase, not 40. But I do know people that have these, and they think they're great. They actually change the passphrase for their devices on a schedule. So makes it harder for cyber criminals to break into their accounts and their systems. Time for some pearls of wisdom. So here's some tips I think will help you with shifting your risk. This is by far the number one thing you need to be thinking about when you're out there working, because you don't want to assume liability if you don't have to. So first of all, recommend experts. You are a licensed real estate professional. That's the hat you wear. That's all you should be doing. Your clients have legal questions. They have tax questions. You should be referring them to an attorney or an accountant, or maybe they have questions about the structure of the home. They should talk to a building contractor, or if they possibly home inspectors. They may have questions about, like I said before, about the school district. Another one is that they themselves, the client, needs to be an expert, because they may say, is this a quiet neighborhood? Don't assume that liability. Instruct them to drive around the neighborhood at different times of the day throughout the week. Judge for yourself. Make sure you obtain a completed seller's disclosure form or waiver. We need that in the file to help defend you when there's a claim. Also, huge fan of home warranties. They solve way more problems than you can possibly imagine. So get in writing that you recommended it, and that if they don't purchase one, that you get in writing that they waived not wanting to purchase a home warranty. Same thing for home inspections. Home inspections always find something. I had my house built in 2014, and my realtor told me, you're getting a home inspection. I said, it's a brand new house. What could be wrong? He's like, you'll see. So I got a home inspection. Got 2 pages back of all kinds of problems. I was like, oh my goodness. Things I would have never even thought to look up. The backyard ground was too high. I guess was going to make my home susceptible to termites, so they had to regrade the backyard. Stuff I would have never thought of anything like that. But I'm glad the home inspector looked for that. So again, these are all great ways that if somebody comes back and isn't happy, you've got the paperwork to prove that you did, advise them properly. And if they didn't take your advice, their fault, not yours. Also, to avoid claims, you need to take care with high-risk clients. Usually I poll the audience, when I'm doing these in person, and I'll ask, who do you think is the highest risk client? And almost immediately people yell out, lawyers. They are definitely high-risk clients. They think they know everything, and they a lot of times think you don't know anything. So they're right, you're wrong. It can be a difficult client to work with. Divorcing couples are also high-risk clients, but the number one high-risk client, first-time home buyers. They don't know what questions to ask. So after they buy the home, that's usually the folks who have buyer's remorse, because then they find out something and they're like, hey, you didn't tell me this. Another high risk, or to avoid claims, stay away from high risk transactions. You may, who doesn't want to sell a $2 million home, get the commission on something like that? That'd be a dream sale, but that's a high risk transaction, because the home of that value if they feel like have a financial loss, they're going to sue for a lot more money. And also, dealing with commercial transactions. People buy a particular commercial property thinking it's going to make this much money, and it doesn't. One of the first people they think of blaming is you, because you led them to believe that it was going to make them money. So be careful. Pick and choose your battles. I had a client that years ago, this was down in Texas. There's a couple suburbs outside of San Antonio. One's called Bernie, the other one's called Brunsville. And my client was heading to Bernie to show a property. And she asked her husband if while he was going to New Bernie to do work, if he could put a sign in a yard for a listing she was going to have. And he's like, yeah, no big deal. Well, he ended up putting the sign in the wrong yard. And a couple who was driving through the neighborhood saw the sign and thought, oh, this is a beautiful home. They're in the market. So they got out of their car and they started walking around the property like that sign gave them the right to do that. And the owner of the home didn't see the sign, that there was a sign in their yard. They just saw a couple people snooping around his properties. This is Texas. So the guy came out with a shotgun, scared these people off his property. Of course, the couple turned around and sued our client for personal injury because the sign was wrong. Crazy things happen every day. But the one thing I need you all to do to avoid claims, this is the biggest thing. You have to do this. You have to follow your office policies and procedures, because the plaintiff attorney, once they realize that you didn't follow policies and procedures, it's what they're going to build their whole case around. And it makes this very hard for us to defend you. So make sure you follow to the letter your office policy and procedures. Don't try to be creative and beat the system, because that's when you're going to end up losing in court. Don't overstate. You need to just state the facts. Cite your sources. Don't overstate. Be the source to the source, but not the source. Terry Watson, if you guys haven't read him or seen his stuff, I highly recommend it. He's awesome. It's one of my favorites. What I mean by facts is you've listed the house saying that the home has a new roof. That's not a fact. That's an opinion, because the roof was replaced in 2021. That's 3 years old. That's not new to me. That's used. Same thing if you say the kitchen's been completely remodeled. I think completely. I'm thinking that the entire kitchen's been gutted down to the studs, and even the plumbing and the wiring has been replaced. All that was actually replaced were countertops and cabinets. That's not completely remodeled. So keep those things in mind when you're listing. Be specific. The adage, the 3 most important things in real estate: location, location, location. Same thing applies in insurance. 3 most important things are documentation, documentation, documentation. We need the paper. And as I said before, the written narrative is paramount. The new thing that you're all going to need to be doing, if you're not doing it already, is to make sure you're including text messages in the file, because you don't want a year later to have your phone subpoenaed by an attorney because they want to see the text messages on your phone. I don't know about you, but I can't go a day without my phone. Don't want to surrender your phone to the courts. You may never get it back. So make sure all the text messages are in the file, along with all the emails, notes, correspondence, waivers, especially waivers. Those are a great way to transfer your risk. As far as following office procedures regarding destruction, most things are kept, or should be kept electronically now, so just keep them forever. But the best advice I've gotten from the legal team is just keep it for at least 10 years. Don't know a state whose statute of limitations is, some vary, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years is safe. All right. The questions. I know there was, look at the chat here. Says our escrow title officers advise clients about wire fraud risk. Do you think we should advise clients to not wire funds or just advise them how to do it safely, like our partners? Yeah, if the title company is the one who's in charge of wiring the funds, that's, you've transferred your risk. It's on them. They have cyber liability insurance. We actually sell more cyber liability insurance to title companies than any other business. I mean, we insure lawyers, engineers, accountant firms, dentists, and obviously real estate firms. Title companies, I don't know a single title company that doesn't have cyber liability. I think it's almost required for them by the banks. If they're going to do any business at all, they have to show proof of cyber liability. Many real estate franchises are now requiring you to show proof of cyber liability. I do think that at some point everybody will need, it just should be a prerequisite if you're going to do business. You know, if the state's going to give you a license to sell real estate, they're going to say, where's your E&O? Where's your cyber liability? Another important policy we didn't talk about, but you may have heard about it. If not, look into it. It's called general liability. So yes, definitely let them know that you're not going to be sending them any wiring instructions. And if they do get an email with such, to call you. It's the best thing you can do. Regarding PII, name, address, phone number, pretty easily available online. As a realtor, I never see my client's social security number, income, or credit score. The lender sees that info. And, you know, that's usually true, but not always the case. Sometimes, you know, your client may email you or copy you on an email to the bank, and now your email has that information. Even if you delete it, it's still in your email. So you may not want that information, but occasionally you may get it on accident. Any other questions? I have all of this knowledge. I want to share it with y'all. I'm here. Use me. No. I don't have any suggestions for a two-step authentication system. It's just something that my company provides. The device that I use, the app on my phone, is called Authenticator. It's just that simple. I don't know if there are, how many different ones are out there, but it's definitely something you should talk to your IT department or IT guy about. It's a really good way to protect yourself. How do we contact me? Well, I'm going to give you my there's my email address. Feel free to shoot me an email. Anything else? Well, I hope you all learned something. If anything, what's the one thing you're supposed to remember? What's a claim? A demand for money or services. Write it down. Let all your friends and agents, everybody know. As soon as you get a claim, you need to let the insurance company know. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all today, and I wish you all the best. Actually, one last thing I wanted to mention previously. You know, the NAR settlement has required some changes, which current deadline for those changes are August 17th. Wouldn't be surprised if that gets changed, but you know, the attorneys are still working some things out. The The one thing that you need to make sure your E&O policy has after those changes are in force, because all buyer's agents are going to need to enter into an agreement with their clients outlining the fee that they're going to collect. There are E&O policies out there that in the definition of professional services, it will say that you must collect a fee in order for coverage to apply. So if you have a policy that requires you to collect a fee, you may not have coverage after August 17th. The policies that my company sells does not include any language that requires you to collect a fee. So this is something you all need to look into. Does your E&O policy require you to collect a fee? If it does, you need to switch insurance companies. Glad I remembered to tell you that. We've got an email blast that's going out here this month that's going to let all of our current clients and prospective clients know that. And I'm sure the NAR is going to be doing the same. It's the best we can do is just to keep everybody educated and informed. Just worry about the firms out there that will have the wrong type of insurance and end up having some uncovered claims. So don't want to see that happen. All right, well, I'll let you all go and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chad. Have a good rest of your day.
Will do. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.